Ready?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Rabbi, we're on DAF Yud Beis Amid Aleph. Beis Hillel Omrim Bepruta. Beis Hillel say that the minimal amount of money that you have to present for Kiddushin is a pruta. So Savar Rav Yosef Lemeimar Pruta Koldahu. Rav Yosef was originally under the impression that a pruta does not have to have any specific value other than the lowest denomination of whatever currency you're currently using. So if you live in Canada and it's a penny, although they got rid of the penny, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you're in the United States and it's a penny, so then a penny is worth a penny. And if you're living in another country or in another age and the lowest denomination is another value, so that's what it is. However, Amarle Abaye v'ha'ala ketani kamahi pruta echad mishmona be'isr ha'italki. But Abaye says, now wait a minute. The Mishnah said that there is a value to a pruta. It's not just based on the lowest coin, but it's got to be 1/8 of an Italian isser, which whatever that is, but it's a certain specific amount of value. Maybe you'll tell me that the Mishnah was telling you that was the original value of a pruta from the biblical age. But nowadays, you can use whatever is the minimum, the smallest currency of wherever you live, but that also you can't say, because Vahaki Asa Ravdimi Amar Shir Rebbe Simoy Bidoro Kamehi Pruta Echad Mishmana Be'Isr HaItalki, because Rav Dimi rather said that Rebbe Simoy calculated that a pruta in modern times, in his time, was 1/8 of an Isser HaItalki. So you see that it's not just based on what was done in the biblical age. Even nowadays, it has to be a certain minimal amount. V'chiasa Rabin Amar Rabbi Tustoy v'Rabbi Yanai v'Rabbi Oshia Shiru Kama Havi Pruta Echad Mishisha B'Isser HaItalki. And when Rabin said that these other Chachamim had calculated the value of a pruta, and they said it was 1/6 of an Isser HaItalki. Now that seems to argue with our Mishnah. We'll get to that in just a moment. Because our Mishnah says it's 1/8 of an Isser HaItalki. So anyway, Amar le Rav Yosef, Ihachi Hainu Ditanina. So Rav Yosef says, now that you've demonstrated to me that a pruta does have an absolute minimal value, so now I understand why the Brisa says as follows: Seva Chashov Kama Prutos B'Shnei Sloim Yoser Me'alpayim. The Brisa says, go and calculate how many prutos will you find in 2 selas, which is 8 dinars according to Rashi, because there's 4 dinars per sela. He says, if you think about it, there are more than 2,000 prutos in 2 selas. So the Gemara says, now what are you talking about? Lo havyan yeser me alpayim kari alpayim lo havyan. I'm sorry. Hashta alpayim lo havyan. Yeser me alpayim kari lahu ? The Gemara says, now wait a minute. If you do the math, you won't even find 2,000 prutas in 2 selas. How can you tell me that it's more than 2,000? So Amar lahu hahu saba anatanina la karov la alpayim. So a certain elder said, I have a different girsa of that brisa. Not that it's over 2,000, but it's approaching or almost 2,000. But sof alpa v'chamesh meya v'tlasin v'shisuhu dahavyan. But the Gemara says, but wait a minute. If you calculate it carefully, it really is only 1,536. And Rashi tells us what the math is. He says, there are 8 dinars in 2 selas. There are 24 issers per dinar. So, and how many prutas are in? How many prutas are in 1 isser? There's 8 prutas in 1 isser. So it's 8 times 24 times 8, which is basically, if you want to do the math, there's 192 prutas in 1 dinar. There's 192 prutas in 1 dinar. If you multiply 192 times 8, you get 1536. There you go. Good.
Yeah, I just read it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So anyway, so the Gemara says, how can you tell me there's almost 2,000 if it's really only 1536? The Gemara says it's not such a problem, because once it goes after 1500, you're now into the second half of the second 1,000, so it's close to 2,000. That's what it means. Gufa. Ki asa Rav Dimi Amar Shir Rabbi Simoy B'Dora Kami Hipruta Echad Mishmona B'Isra Ital Ki V'Chi asa Rabban Amar Shiaru Rabbi Dustoy Rabbi Yaniv Raboshia Kami Hipruta Echad Mishisha B'Isra Ital. So let's go back to this machlokes. One is Rav Dimi quoting earlier sages that it's 1/8 of an Isser, and the other one is Rabbin quoting other sages who say that the calculation is 1/6 of an Isser. So Amar le Abaye le Rav Dimi Nema Atva Rabbin beplukta dahani Tanoi ka miflagisu. Maybe you guys are arguing in a machlokes Tanoim. What does the Brisa say? To Tanya Pruta Shamru Chachamim Echad Mishmona B'Isser Haitalgi. That the first mandomer of this Brisa says that a pruta that the Chachamim identify is 1/8 of an Isser. And how do we do the math? Sheish ma'a kesef dinar, that there are 6 ma'as of silver in 1 dinar. There's a ma'a is shnei punjonim, and 1 ma'a is 2 punjons. Punjon shnei isser, and 1 punjon is 2 Issers, and Isser shnei musmisin, and 2 Issers are 1 Isser is 2 musmisin, and mismis shnei kuntronkin, and 1 mismis is 2 kuntronkin, and kuntrak shtei prutos, and 1 kuntrak is 2 prutos. So if you were following all of that, nimsa pruta echas mishmona b'isser italki. So it turns out that 1 pruta is an 1/8 of an Isser. Okay, just basically the ratio of an Isser to a pruta is 8 to 1. Fine, so that's the first opinion. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Shlosha Hadarsin Lama'a. He says, no, I have a different way of calculating the amount of silver based on a different kind of denomination. There are 3 Hadarsin for 1 Ma'a, Shnei Hanatsin Lahadris, 2 Hanatsin for 1 Hadris, Shnei Shmonim Lahanetz, there are 2 Shmonim for 1 Hanetz, and base prutos l'shamin, and there's 2 prutas for 1 shamin. Nimsa pruta echas mishisha be'isser haitalki. According to this calculation, since an isser is 1/24 of a dinar, and using this calculation, we started with what there are 3 hadrasin to 1 ma'a, and we had said that previously there are 6 ma'as to 1 dinar. So using that math, you get that in pruta is 1/6. I'm not going to go through the whole calculation, but basically it's a machlokas between these two tanoim. So it sounds like you and the other Amora, you say 1/8, he says 1/6. So you hold like the Tanakama, he holds like Rav Shimon Gamliel. So the Gemara says, Lema Damar Omer Ketanakama, Rabbi Damar Shimon Gamliel. So Amar Le no. So he said back to him, no, that Rav Dimi said, Bein didiu vein Rabbin alibet Tanakama, velo kasha, ha de'ekar isuri, ha dezol isuri. Really, both of us hold like the Tanakama, who says that it's 1/8. But Rabbin was talking about a period of time when the Isser was devalued. In other words, there was a fluctuation in the value of an Isser. At one point it was worth more, in which case a pruta was only 1/8 of an Isser. And at a later time, like the Gemara speaks out, ha de'ekar isuri kum esrim va'arba bezuza, ha dezol kum tlasin utrain bezuza. At one time, and there were 24 Issers per dinar, and therefore a pruta is 1/8 of an Isser. But there was another time when the Isser was devalued, and you needed 32 Issers to make up 1 dinar. It was like sort of like the loonie, right? And so therefore now all you need is 6 prutas for an Isser because of the devalued Isser. Okay, Amar Shmuel. Let's go on to the next idea. Shmuel says, Kitsha b'tamara afilo omid kor tamar b'dinar mikudeshes chayshinan sheva shava pruta b'madai. So Shmuel says a very, very big chiddush. He says that if you present a woman with something that is clearly less than a shava pruta, you give her a date, and even though the price of dates is very low, so that you can buy a whole core of dates for 1 dinar, so this date is clearly worth less than a pruta, nevertheless, misafek, she's mikudeshes. In other words, we have to be at least choshesh l'chumra that she's mikudeshes, because maybe dates are more expensive somewhere else in the world, like in media. Maybe they're more expensive, and therefore, since potentially this has cash power of a shava pruta somewhere on the other side of the world, you have to be choshesh l'chumer for kiddushin. So frek the Gemara v'ha'an ansnan beisil omer b'pruta uveshava pruta. But one second, the Mishnah says that it has to be, if you give her something that's not cash but cash equivalent, it has to be right now worth a pruta, and it's not. So the Gemara says, Lo kasha ha b'kiddushay vadai ha b'kiddushay safek. The Gemara says it's not a contradiction. Our mission is telling you what do you need as far as cash equivalent to make definitive kiddushin, and that's got to be right here and now worth a pruta. But to be choshesh for safek kiddushin, even if right here and now it's worth less than a shava pruta, no matter what trinket you present to a woman l'shem kiddushin, even if it's clearly less than a shava pruta, you have to be choshesh l'chumra that maybe somewhere else in the world it's worth a pruta. Hahu gavra da'akdish b'zavadi d'ordi. There was a man who presented a woman some cushion stuffing as kiddushin, really worth bubkis, right? Worth less than bubkis. So Yosef Rav Shimi Bar Chia Kamei Derav V'Kama Ayin Ba Yispa Shava Pruta in Ilolo. So Rav Shimi was trying to calculate. Let's see how much this stuffing is worth. If it's worth a Shava Pruta, she's Mekudeshes. If it's not worth a Shava Pruta, she's not Mekudeshes. V'iles Ba Shava Pruta Lo V'Hamar Shmul Chashina. But why should he be worried making this calculation? Even if it's worth less than a shava pruta, didn't Shmuel paskin that l'chumra you have to be choshesh she's mekudeshes and you'd have to give her a get? Lo kasha habi kiddushay vadei habi kiddushay safek. So no, Rav Shimi, you're right. Rav Shimi holds like Shmuel. It's just that he wanted to determine, does she need to get another kiddushin l'chumra or not? If it's definitively worth the shava pruta, so then there's nothing to talk about. She's married, end of story. If it's worth less than a shava pruta right here and now, then l'chumra we should require her to get another kiddushin. Hahu gavra de'akdish ba'avna de'kuchla, Yosef Rav Chisda v'komashar le'yispe shava pruta in v'ilo lo. Another story, there was a man who presented a woman with a little black marble, a piece of marble, and he said, Arya mekudeshesli. So Rav Chisda wanted to calculate, is this worth a shava pruta or not? And he said, if it's not worth a shava pruta, she's not married. So v'ilespe shava pruta lova amar Shmuel cheshinan. But what about Shmuel's halacha that l'chumra were choshesh for kiddushin even if it's worth less? Here the Gemara gives a different answer. Rav Chisda lo savrle de Shmuel, that Rav Chisda doesn't paskin like Shmuel. In other words, Shmuel is machmir. He says, even if it's clearly less than a shava pruta, right here and now, maybe it's worth that somewhere else. Rav Chisda says it's only got to do with here and now. So if right here and now you can determine that it's worth less, then there's nothing more to talk about. It's not even misafik a kiddushin. Now, Amr le'ime v'hahu yoma de kidsha have a shava pruta. So the mother of the chassan comes along and says, no, I maintain that on the day when my son gave over this piece of marble to the girl, it was worth a shava pruta, and therefore she's mekudeshes for sure. And you, Rav Chisda, are looking at it today. The price of marble went down since then. Amar la lav kol keminach the asras la abasra. He says, I'm sorry, madam, you don't have any ne'emanus, you don't have any reliability, any believability to say that this girl is not a free girl and cannot marry the guy that she really wants to marry. Lav hainu di Yehudis devisu de Rebbe Chia. And I'll illustrate it with a story of a woman whose name was Yehudis. She was Rebbe Chia's wife. Now, dehavulat tsar leida. She already had a couple of kids with Rebbe Chia, and she didn't want to have any more children because it was very painful childbirth for her. So Amrli aim kabil beich avuch kiddushay kizotris. So one day when her husband wanted to treat her like his wife, she says to him, "Oi, you're not going to believe this. My mother just called today, and she told me that when I was a little girl, my father had actually accepted a kiddushin on my behalf to marry someone else. So we can't live together anymore as husband and wife." I would be so insulted if my wife made up such a story. So Amar La, but what did Reb Chia do? No problem, he says. Lav kol keminach de imach de asras lechi luyai. He says your mother has no reliability. She doesn't have any ne'emanus, your mother. That there's already a chazaka that we're married, so therefore there's nothing more to talk about. So there's no believability that your mother has. In the same way, Rav Chisda said to this woman, the mother of the chassan, you have no ne'emanus to try and preclude this girl from marrying someone else. If right here and now we see that it's not worth a shava pruta, there's nothing more to talk about. So Amri lei Rabbanon Rav Chisda amai ha'amri ikasahadi be'idis diyadi debahu yama ava be'shava pruta. So then some of Rav Chisda's Talmidim turn to him and they say, but Rebbe, they're also saying that not only does this woman say that it was worth the shava pruta, the mother of the chassan, but they're saying that there are other people who can testify in the town of Iddis, which is like maybe the next town over or wherever, however far it is. They're claiming also that the price of marble on the day that he was Makadisher would makes this worth a shava pruta. So Rav Chisda's response was, Hashtamina miha lesnahu kaman. So Rav Chisda says, sorry, I don't have to listen to Edom if they're not in front of me right now. When they come, well, that's something else to talk about. But right now, I'm paskening based on what's presented to me right here and now. Lav hainu de Rebbe Chanina. We have a similar story by Rebbe Chanina. De Rebbe Chanina, Eideha b'tzad asasan v'te'aser, question mark. Now Rebbe Chanina was dealing with the following case. The law is that if a Jewish girl is taken captive, and she testifies that I was not defiled by my captors, she's believed, provided that she's the one who provides the information independently that she was kidnapped. But if witnesses come along and say that she was kidnapped, then she has no believability to say that she was not defiled. Okay? So basically we say apesha asar or apesha hitter, that if she testifies I was kidnapped but I was not defiled, we believe her. It's like a migu. But if someone else testifies that she was kidnapped, we don't believe her to say that she was not defiled. Now, Rabbi Chanina, this girl comes before him and says, Rebbe, I was taken captive and I was not defiled. Someone comes along and says, we have witnesses who can testify that she was kidnapped, so you shouldn't accept her testimony. So Rabbi Chanina says, her witnesses may be somewhere in the far north. Why do I have to answer her based on some nebulous testimony that has not come before me? So my psak is that she's perfectly muteris to a kohen, and there's nothing more to talk about. Abaya v'Rava lo svira luhu lahad Rav Chisda. Im hekilu b'shavoi demenavlo nafsha gabe shavoi nekel be'eshes ish. So their argument, Abai and Rava disagreed with Rav Chisda. They felt that just because Rebbe Chanina was makel by a Jewish girl who testified that she was kidnapped, does not mean that you can apply that to here. Because just because Rebbe Chanina was makel there, he says the reason to be makel over there is because a Jewish girl who's kidnapped is going to do everything within her power to make sure that she's not defiled by her captors. She will make herself ugly, she'll do whatever she needs to do. And based on that, Rabbi Chanina said, if she testifies that she was not defiled, I'll believe her. But over here, who's to say that the marble was not worth a shava pruta? There's no argument, there's no chazaka to say that it wasn't worth a shava pruta, that we can conjoin with the fact that we have no testimony right here and now. And therefore they felt that if someone's claiming that there is testimony that can definitively define this marble as having been worth a shava pruta, we have to be choshesh for it. We have to wait for that testimony to come before issuing the psak. And therefore they felt that Rav Chisda was makel inappropriately. Now, ishtar me'ahi mishpacha besura uparsha rabbanon minei v'lav mishum desvir luhu deshmuel ala mishum desvir lu kabaya v'rava. And therefore, based on that, even though Rav Chisda permitted this girl to remarry, the girl who got the marble, and she did remarry and she had children, but there were people who refrained from marrying into that family out of a chashash that the children were mamzerim, not because of Shmuel's issue that even though you know for sure that right here and now it's not worth a shava pruta, you still have to be choshesh. No, but rather because of the fear of Abai and Rava, where they said that if there is someone who claims that there are witnesses who can come, you have to verify with those witnesses before you can let her remarry, and that was not done in this situation, and therefore people were machmir. Hahu gavra de'akdish b'shutisa de'asa b'shuka. Next story. There was once a man who presented a girl with kiddushin. He gave her a myrtle branch, a hadas, and he gave it to her in the marketplace. So there's two issues here. One is that it seems like it's less than a shava pruta, and number two, he's doing something pritzus dik. He's doing something very brazen. It's very immodest. Because since when do you marry a girl in the middle of the shuk? So Sholcha Rav Acha Bar Huna Lekami de Rav Yosef Kaigav Namai. So they asked Rav Yosef, what's the psak? So Shalach Lei Nagde Karav Itzterich Gita Kishmol. He says, give the guy Malkus because of Rav's halacha, who felt that when you do something brazen, we penalize you. but also she needs to get a get, because I paskin like Shmuel, who says that even though right here and now it's clearly not worth a shava pruta, you still have to be machmir. The Rav mangid al de mekadesh b'shuka, ve'al de mekadesh b'biyah, ve'al de mekadesh below shiduche, because Rav used to give malchus to a man who would present kiddushin to a girl in the marketplace. Also, he would give malchus if a man was makadesh using biyah, even though that's one of the three legal methods, but it's not tzniistic. In other words, it's brazen that the first initiation of marriage should be done through a sexual act. And therefore, you have to be more proper and use kiddushin or shtar. Val de makadesh below shiduche, or if a man would marry a woman without first making the shiduch, which is the financial negotiations. I believe that's what the word shiduche means over here. Mark, how do they translate the word shiduche? Because it doesn't mean the shidduch resume. That's not what it means, clearly, right?
Yeah.
So
it's an agreement. Actually, an agreement to marry.
An agreement to marry. There has to be some familial consent from both sides. They make a l'chaim and they agree that there's going to be a marriage. And va'al demevatel gita, or if Rav used to give malchus to a man who, after he sent the get with a shaliach, made a public declaration to be mevatel the get, because look at the destructiveness. She's going to get the get and not realize what you did. And va'al demoser moda'a gita, or if a person, after he's given his wife a get, starts to claim, well, I was under duress, starts to try and disqualify the get. Val demitzar shlucha de rabbanon. Rashi says this means that if a shaliach of the Beis Din comes knocking at your door saying, here's a summons to come to Beis Din, you get upset with the shaliach and start hitting him over the head. He says, what are you killing the messenger for, right? And va'al dechala shamta iluya tlasin yaman, or if a person was put under a rabbinic ban for 30 days because he didn't comply with the Beis Din, if that lasts for 30 days, Rav would give him malchus. Va'al chasana dedair beichamua, and finally he would give malchus to a son-in-law who would live in the same house as his mother-in-law. Why? Because there's a natural affinity between a son-in-law and a mother-in-law. Tell that to all the comedians, right? But according to Chazal, there is this natural...
It's a love-hate relationship.
It's a love-hate relationship. Yes, some people emphasize the hate, some people emphasize the love, right? So, but there's a natural affinity, and therefore there's a suspicion that maybe one party will succumb to the other. So the Gemara says, the dair in chalif lo. So you mean to tell me that it's only problematic if he lives in the same house, but just visiting is okay? Why then did Rav Sheshes give malchus to a man who just visited his mother-in-law? So hahu made them havas daima chamas emine. So the Gemara says that was because there already was a rumor about the two of them having some kind of special relationship, and because of that, even just visiting, right, is not okay, right? So you should not go visit or see your mother-in-law. The only place you should see your mother-in-law, as they say, is on a milk carton. But anyway, that's an old joke. Okay, Nahardoi Amri. You never heard that one before?
Put people who are missing on a milk carton?
Missing children on the milk carton, right. Anyway, okay, that's an old joke, okay. All right, scratch that from the tape. Nahardoi Amri. Bekul lo mangid Rav ela al demakadesh bebiya below shiduche, and the rabbis of Nahardor says no. Rav was not so forthcoming with giving malchus. He only gave malchus to a man who was makadesh bebiya without prearrangements with the family. V'ika da amri va'afilu b'shiduche nami mishum pritzusa. Others learn that he would give malchus to a man even if there was prearrangements, but if he's makadesh bebiya, that's considered to be pritzus. And like Tosfos quotes in the name of the Ri, sha'osin tchilas kinyanin bebiya dumi de makadesh below shiduche, because it's too forthright, it's too much of an act of intimacy before the couple gets to know each other, and that's why it's considered to be brazen. Hahu gavra de kadosh betzifta de asa. Now here's another story. There was once a man who presented to kiddushin to his bride, but instead of giving her a ring, he gave her a mat made out of dried myrtle branches, which also seems to be not worth the shava pruta. Sa'amr lei v'ha lesba shava pruta. They said it's not worth a minimal amount. Sa'amr lehu tikdosh ba'ar bezuze de isba. He says, but there's 4 coins, there's 4 shekels wrapped into the mat, and that's what I've given to her a value. So shakalta vishtika, so she walked away and didn't say anything. So the question is now, is she married or not? So Amar Rava habashtikasa de la'achar matan mos v'chol shtikusa de la'achar matan mos lav klumisi. So Rava says she's not married. Why? Because at the time that he gave it to her and said Arya mekudeshesli b'matzu, she didn't know that it was worth a shavaprut. It's only after the fact. So her silence is not necessarily an acceptance of the marriage proposal, but rather she accepts the gift and put it in her pocket and walked away. So Amar Rava Mino, Rava says, how can I prove this to you? I'll show you, because the Tanya, there's a brayse that has a first part and a second part. The first part says, Kinsi selazu befi kadam. If a man says to a woman, here, take this coin and use it and keep it for safekeeping until I come back. V'chazar v'amar la hiskadshi libo. And then he changes his mind and he says, you know what? I want you to use that money as kiddushin. So bishas matan ma'os mikudeshes. If he gave this, if at the time when he actually presents her with the coin and puts it in her hands, he changes his mind and says, Arya mikudeshes li b'selazu. So then, by her acceptance of it, she's mikudeshes. But la'achar matan ma'os. But if after he's already put the coin in her hand, then he says, you know what? Use it as kiddushin. So then it depends. Ratzasa mikudeshes. Lo ratzasa ina mikudeshes. So if she wants it, if she wants the marriage, it's a good marriage. If she doesn't want the marriage, it's not a good marriage. So the question is, my ratzasa, my lo ratzasa. What is the definition of wanting? So ilay ma ratzasa da amra in, lo ratzasa da amra lo. If you're going to tell me that her wanting means she said, okay, she affirmed verbally that she wants to be married, and not wanting is to verbally say, I don't want to be married, say no. So michlal dereisha. So the first case is that as long as you said Arya Mekudeshes, well, you put it in her hand, regardless of whether it's Ratzasa or not Ratzasa, the implication is that she is married. How can you tell me that by her accepting the coin and saying, no, I'm not accepting marriage, that's a marriage? How can that possibly be a marriage? So my Vahaka Amra Lo. She said no. So Elalav, Ratzasa da Amra in, Lo Ratzasa di Ishtika Mishtaka. So, but rather, what it means is that ratzasa means she verbalizes yes. Lo ratzasa means that she's just remained silent. And therefore you have no indication that she's accepted it other than her silence. So therefore, what do you see? That shma mina, shtika delachar matan mos, lo klumhi. So you see, if at the time when he gives it to her, she's shosekes, she's quiet, so then that's a tacit acceptance of the money for marriage. But if after he gave her the money, then he says, Arya mekudeshes li b'selazu, and then she shosekes, that's meaningless, because we could say the reason she's quiet is because she's relying on what its status was when he first gave it to her, and she doesn't have to acknowledge that he wants it now to be for marriage, because she says, sorry, it's already in my pocket already, and I don't have to say anything. And therefore that's not a valid act of marriage, even with her shtika. Normally shtika kahoda, but not if it's after the fact. Have a wonderful day, a meaningful fast.